Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show podcast. Joining me as always every single week, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of RedState.com, Andrew Malcolm at AH Malcolm on Twitter. He's calling in today because of technical difficulties, but also because I suspect that he is just hung over from his celebrations of his 80th birthday. So first off, happy birthday.
Thank you. Technically, it's Thursday, but my three boys and their families are all arriving today for a grand reunion, and we'll have a party before the birthday. So in case I don't make it, I've already had a happy time.
What is this? A sort of a Betty White sort of thing? With,
Yeah.
I think the trick here is, Andrew, don't make the cover of People magazine. Okay, whatever you do, stay off the cover of People magazine.
Yeah. And I'm not exactly worried about that kind of fame. I mean, there's nothing to book me on about. So that's good.
That's not true. You're the Prince of Twitter and the Regent of RedState.com.
That's right. That's right. I've got to add Regent to my Twitter avatar. I've had Prince up there forever, but I want people to understand the full import of who is tweeting there.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I say too. The full import, I say. All right. Well, congratulations. Happy birthday to you on Thursday.
Oh, thank you very much. And I'm going to, we'll have to do another special show in 30 years when you get to 80.
No, 20 years when I get to 80. You are way too kind.
Yeah.
It was 60 for me this year. So, I'm sneaking up.
Bret Hume and I have exactly the same birthday in exactly the same birth year.
Oh, really?
Different places. Different places. So every year on the birthday, we connect online, and we agreed that 0 to 60 seemed like at least 60 years, but 60 to 80, just like about a 5-year period. Zoom! It just went so fast. Everybody, all the kids and your kids' kids were growing up, and it's like, whoa, hey, take your foot off the accelerator here.
Yikes. Well, that's good to know, I think. I think that's good to know. Not sure that that's good to know, but I think that's good to know. All right. So now that I have something to really dread, let's get into politics, where the dreading is easy. First off, the since we've talked the last time, the indictments come down for Donald Trump, and I want to talk a little bit with you. I don't know if you saw much of it, but he went on Fox News yesterday, and rather than going on one of the opinion shows, right? He, like Hannity, he shows up on Hannity a lot. Ingram, he went on with Bret Baier, and I'm not necessarily sure that he understood what the difference was, but I think Bret Baier made it pretty clear yesterday in that interview what the difference actually is. I mean, Bret Baier did a real news interview. I was very impressed with Bret Baier's performance. Did you get a chance to see this at all?
No, I did not. I bookmarked it to watch, but he is a real pro, and I've admired him. I've what do you call it? DVR'd. I've
sure
recorded his show for years because he's good. He's straight, and I don't know. I guess you could guess where he comes down politically, but not from his questions. He's a genuine, old-fashioned journalist like Bret Hume, and
I agree. I mean,
that.
Very much like Bret Hume, very much part of that sort of same, ethos.
And he took Hume's place on that special report.
He did take Hume's place on special report, and so the other part of this is when you're looking at this last night, it's just a very factual, I want to say interrogation. Normally you wouldn't say that in terms of journalism. And maybe interrogation is a little too strong, but it's a very normal sort of question and answer based on the facts as alleged in the indictment, right? And this is a reason why, when I wrote about this last night, I said, the first rule of federal indictment club is you don't talk about your case in public. And that's the reason why somebody who's under federal indictment probably shouldn't be doing a news show and talking about the allegations in the indictment. And this was not actually the only part of the interview that I think is troublesome for Trump, but certainly legally troublesome, was that when he started going through the obstruction charge in the indictment, meaning Baier, Donald Trump implicitly admitted to it, saying, but because Bret Baier said something to the effect of, the indictment alleges that you moved the boxes around so that you could so that you didn't, they weren't part of the subpoena, so that you could hide them from the subpoena. And Trump said, yeah, but I was busy and I wanted to go through those boxes before I handed them back. It's like, that may not be a Colonel Jessup, your blank right, I did, moment from A Few Good Men, but it's a pretty damaging admission of both the fact that he actually did obstruct justice and he meant to do it.
And what's he been doing in the last 2 years that he couldn't do it, go through those boxes?
Well, he told Baier just maybe a sentence or two earlier, well, I've been very busy, but he'd had those boxes for over a year at Mar-a-Lago, and busy meant he was playing a lot of golf, right? He had time to go through those boxes, and he could have done it long before it became a crisis point. But that's more of a political thing. The legal thing is a real problem. The other part that was a political thing about this, and I think is worth talking about in terms of journalism again, because you don't really see this very often in journalism, is that Bret Baier went through all the different people he appointed, because Donald Trump was saying, I appointed the best people, and we got, you probably haven't seen this yet, but you should take a look at this, where Bret Baier goes through all of the different people who worked for Donald Trump, who are either running against him in this cycle or have criticized him, and people that he's made, tons of disparaging comments about, and said, why did you hire these people in the first place? And Donald Trump, it's like, that's a political issue. That's not going to get him any illegal trouble, but it sort of undercuts the whole I only hire the best and brightest argument that Donald Trump keeps pushing as a presidential candidate. Well, go ahead.
Hyperbole is the worst thing ever. And
it's the end of civilization. Hyperbole is the end of civilization.
That's right, exactly. And he said that many, many times, actually before the election and then after the election, and when he announced people. And I remember when he ended up firing Rex Tillerson, and I tweeted, he said that Rex Tillerson was dumb and all this stuff. And I said, geez, who the heck hired Tillerson? And, fire him. But you could say that about all the people. Now, Nikki Haley, I think came through. She stood up to Trump a couple of times at the UN. She certainly stood up to the Russians. I was impressed with her. And she left on good terms when after what 2+ years. Mike Pence was loyal. He didn't get fired, but the boss is unhappy now. So you're absolutely right.
Pence couldn't get fired. That's the thing. Pence got elected to that position, so Trump can't. A president can't fire a vice president. But
no, I know, but he's fired in terms of Trump loyalty.
Yeah, he's been tossed out of the MAGA crowd, but I think Pence probably walked out of that on his own, more or less.
Yeah, he certainly did. And I think, I guess there's a lot of venom for Pence by the Trump people for not following the boss's orders on January 6th. But I think he's shown up to be on facts, a stand-up guy, and I appreciate what he did. I appreciate his conscience. You can disagree with what he did, but he was loyal as a vice president, which vice presidents must be. And he stood up when the president, he thought, crossed the line. So,
yep.
Good on him. Good on him.
No, I mean, I don't disagree with that. But I mean,
he's unusual. Pence. I'm sorry. Pence is unusual. I mean, I don't think we've ever had a time in our history where the vice president is running against the person who picked him.
Certainly in the modern presidency, that's true. Now, I think in the very early elections in the U.S., when those were actually separate elections, or actually what they had was a presidential election, and the runner-up got the VP. I think that was more or less the rule, is that you had two people going at each other, and the vice presidency was the bucket of warm spit consolation prize, so to speak. But they changed that with I think it was the 12th Amendment changed that, and that was a long time ago. And I think you're right. I don't think I've ever seen of course, we haven't seen a former president run for another term of office since Grover Cleveland. I don't think we've even seen that, right? I mean,
right? Yeah, no, yeah. Not with 4 years in between. Now, James Nance Garner was Roosevelt's vice president, and he's the one who said a vice president is like a bucket of warm spit, except he didn't say
he didn't say spit. No, he didn't say spit. It's been cleaned up a little bit. It's been cleaned up a little bit for succeeding generations.
That's like the general at the Battle of the Bulge, the American general, when the Germans asked for surrender, and he's supposed to say nuts. I don't think he said nuts. But
oh, really? I always thought that was on the level. But I mean, could be wrong. Could have said F you. I would have been happier with that, actually. But yeah,
I think it was the F word, but I could be wrong. I wasn't there. I was alive, but I wasn't there. And so, in fact, I am only 7 months younger than Joe Biden, but I've not yet shown the symptoms.
No, not at all. I mean, there was more of that this week, right? I mean, I do want to get into the Hunter Biden stuff first, in a moment, but we should talk a little bit about that, because this, again, what Bret Baier did was what you would expect journalists to do: take a old-fashioned
journalist,
old-fashioned journalism, right? And he did he did what he was supposed to do. He did his job. He challenged a politician on his own words and on his own record. And Donald Trump ended up burying himself. He should have said, "Look, I can't discuss this. This is an open case. I'll be happy to discuss the issues in the campaign, but I can't discuss my indictment." That's all he needed to say. But he didn't. And so,
that's Trump's problem. I mean, if he had a couple pounds more self-discipline during the 4 years, he wouldn't be in this trouble, and so many people would not have abandoned him with the hyperbole. I don't know if he treasures fame so much, or whether he treasures the attention of being asked questions and answering them, and sticking in something very controversial, so he'll get another news cycle of attention out of it. But it's like a Greek tragedy. We had to read them in high school, and where the king or the god gets in trouble all because of his own pride, not because of an enemy, but because of the enemy within. And that's Trump's trouble. Like a lot of people, I like very much his policies. I think I could say 90% or more of his policies I agreed with, and his programs and his promises. I can't remember in my memory I can't remember a politician, a prominent one, who made so many promises and kept them. I mean, you go down that list: crush ISIS, deregulation, energy independence, income tax cuts. He kept them all, and that was very impressive. It's just that he kind of torpedoed himself, and and he'd have a program. His strategy people, they'd set a program for the week. We're going to talk about X. And they would announce it on Tuesday. And while he's announcing it, he would go off on a tangent on something else. So the media ignored X, and he started a new controversy. And that's where a lot of people, I think, fell off over time. Like you pointed out last week, Trump was a novelty and very refreshing in 2015 and 16.
Absolutely,
yeah. But now, well, even in 20, he had a record, and he left an impression with me of all those policies that I agreed with, but also with many that he talked too much. And if he just kept his mouth shut and avoided punching back on every single trivial thing, people wouldn't have that sense of, oh, I'm so tired of the turmoil. Well, there's a lot of things to be tired about with every president, including the current one. But I prefer a president who had the policies that I really admire.
Well, I agree. And that does bring us to Joe Biden and really sort of the different take that we're getting from the media when it comes to Joe Biden. Which is, I mean, last week, I think it was on Thursday or Friday, right? He gets up and he starts rambling about pistol braces. Now, pistol brace is just a stabilizing brace that allows you to aim a pistol a little bit better, which arguably also means that you could fire a little faster, but it's still one trigger pull per bullet. And Joe Biden got up and started rambling about how this basically turns, pistols into automatic weapons, which it doesn't, and which makes them higher caliber, which is insane. Caliber is fixed, people. If you have a 38, you're going to fire 38s through it. If you've got a 22, you're going to fire 22s from it. You don't take a 22 pistol with a pistol brace and suddenly it magically turns into a 45 Magnum. I mean, it's one of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my entire life. And I've listened to Joe Biden for decades. I mean, and yet, what is the media report? Well, he's folksy and he's, he sometimes says things that flummox his own people, but that's because he's got folksy mannerisms. And yeah, go ahead.
And to say that he's done this forever is crap. I mean, so what? He wasn't president forever,
right?
And people treated him like a crazy uncle at the Thanksgiving dinner table. And I'm like, oh, there he goes again. And here we go, talking about that and this. But now he's president with access to the nuclear launch codes. And there's a different standard of behavior expected. And he in these 2+ years, he's deteriorating visibly.
Yeah.
I mean,
the whole God Save the Queen man thing at the end of that same speech, right?
What was that? Now, Mike Allen on Axios did an explanatory that was. You and I have talked about the media defending him, and this was the most egregious defense of Biden.
It was so bad.
He said this before, and he wasn't president before, and it was such a non sequitur had nothing to do with the issue at hand. I think he was talking about guns. And then suddenly it's God Save the Queen. And by the way, she's dead. Well, yeah, I mean, it's just inexplicable. And they let him coast, just like the crazy uncle at Thanksgiving. You're not going to change him, so give it up. But the Thanksgiving dinner uncle isn't president of the United States. We expect them to be presidential, and
Right.
he hasn't been. He isn't.
He's not even compos mentis at this point in time. And I mean, it's coming across, right? Which brings us, by the way, to the other big story that was just broke this morning. I'm sure you're going to be shocked that the Department of Justice under Joe Biden is offering Hunter Biden a plea deal in which felony tax fraud gets pleaded down to misdemeanor tax, tax no-nos. And the federal gun charge, which was a felony no matter how you cut it, is somehow going to disappear through a diversion program. That's a plea deal that got announced this morning that is going to wrap up all the Hunter Biden investigations. What a shock.
Didn't hear about the diversion. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, he can actually have that expunged at some point as long as he doesn't break any more laws over the next couple of years. They're going to put him into a diversion program. So he's not even pleading on the gun charge. They're doing a diversion program for him on the felony gun charge. This is the same guy who was just up at that same speech, Joe Biden, up at that same speech, talking about how we need to, impose more laws on the use of guns. Meanwhile, his Department of Justice is letting his own son skate for breaking a felony law relating to firearms. I mean, I'm not surprised by this. The only thing I'm surprised about is that it took this long for them to cut this deal. I kind of expected them to cut the deal last year. I just find it sort of interesting coincidence that they're cutting this deal just about the same time they're indicting Trump and just before Joe Biden's going to have to start going on the road to make the pitch for a second term. Total coincidence.
Now, Ed, you're not going to make the argument that there's a parallel system of justice, are you?
Oh, heaven forfend. Heaven forfend. Well, I got to say this, though, and Ann Coulter just said this on Twitter, and I got to agree with her, is that what this may mean is that, Hunter Biden actually listens to his attorneys as opposed to, say, Donald Trump. But I mean, I'm not even saying that this is a parallel system. Trump's the wrong comparison here because Trump had plenty of opportunity to cut a deal. He could have avoided this thing entirely if he had just negotiated in good faith with the National Archives, right? But no, I'm talking about things like
I guess
justice.
People who've negotiated with Trump have a lot to say about that. He's a tricky negotiator, and I don't care about real estate deals. And if he's negotiating as a president, I want him to be an SOB. I'm sorry. I want the president in foreign affairs to be unpredictable. And you'll notice, I've said this before here, you'll notice that Putin annexed Crimea just as Obama and Biden were getting elected. He annexed two provinces of Georgia just when they were getting elected. Then he annexed Crimea and only got sanctions when they were in office. And then when Donald Trump came in, who was unpredictable, nothing. We didn't have any Putin trouble then. But now, but then 2 months after Trump left office, Putin was organizing the Ukraine invasion and started assembling troops. Well, and that's the power. You may not like him, but that's the power of an unpredictable president in foreign affairs. Yeah. Now you want to be able to predict if he says, "I'll sign this" or "I'll veto this." You want to be able to predict that he'll keep his word. But overseas, I mean, that's why Kim Jong-un came to the negotiating table You move two nuclear aircraft carriers with the assembled fleets that go with them into Korean waters, and Kim came to the negotiating table, which he'd never done since taking office. None of them have. So, at least they were talking.
Right.
To me, that's the power of a president who's a negotiator, who can negotiate with allies as well as opponents.
Well, I agree. Okay. Now, I would also say, though, that getting back to the Hunter Biden thing, how much interest do you think that there's going to be in ongoing investigations into the money trail around Hunter Biden and foreign influence peddling with the mainstream media? Because I pretty much suspect that the mainstream media, who have been reporting all along, that there was nothing to these charges, right? I remember, from October 2020 to somewhere around mid-year last year, they were saying that this was nonsense. It was Russian disinformation. It was a bunch of made up stuff. Yeah. I suspect we're going to quickly move to this is an old story. Yeah.
We've reported that. Well, no, not honestly, you haven't reported it. You touched on it, but you waited 2 years to do anything so that the election was history.
Right.
It's dishonest, and that's what makes Bret Baier's stand-up program more impressive.
I completely agree with that. Well, we're kind of running short on time here. I do want to just quickly mention what, I know. I do want to quickly mention what Andrew has cooking over at redstate.com. He's got a Malcolm on the Right that just went up, I think, right? Polls find Americans anxious, which is political trouble. That's your audio commentary over there. And then you mentioned in your VIP column that Trump and Biden each have one very serious problem. I would say one, but
if you look at them, Trump has serious legal problems.
Yes.
You can't change that, and the Democrats are not inclined to change them. Right. Biden has age issues, mental is age issue. It isn't an age issue. I shouldn't.
Cognitive issues. He got cognitive issues.
Cognitive issues as a result of age, and he does this pathetic little skip sometimes on stage to show that he's strong and virile. But it's sadder when he does that. Yeah. And then he trips over a sandbag, a stupid sandbag. And his talk, I've said this before, I can't explain the media's lack of responsibility. They have constitutionally protected rights. And the lack of responsibility in refusing to address and, in fact, to defend Joe Biden's obvious health issues. Anyone who's had an elderly relative and watched them decline, it's irreversible. I'm sorry. And someday we'll all face it. People don't want to talk about it because they will face it, but this guy's president. And the world looks at him as a weak person, which is a very dangerous thing.
Yep. Well, I agree, but we're going to move on to the jokes of the day because I'm depressed.
I'm just going to say, because we don't want to be so depressed here. Let's have some happy talk.
I'm depressed. So let's do. Okay, you want me to go first? I'll go first with the joke first. Hang on for just a second. So here's one. There's a wife who wanted to be romantic, with her husband, decided that she'd send her husband a text while she was out having coffee with a friend. And so she texted, "If you are sleeping, send me your dreams. If you're laughing, send me your smile. If you're eating, send me a bite. If you're drinking, send me a sip. If you're crying, send me your tears. I love you." And then a few minutes later, her husband texted back saying, "I'm on the toilet. Please advise."
Oh, jeez. Oh, boy.
I don't know what to do in that sort of situation, So there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so that's one of mine.
That's like a guy saying to a woman, "I love you," and she says, "I know."
Yeah, not necessarily a good signal. So there you go.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So what's one of yours?
I don't have one.
Oh, okay. So I'll give you one more. So I'll do it. It's your birthday week, so I should be doing the work anyway, right? It's your birthday week. All right. So here's another. If you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it will always be yours. If it doesn't come back, it was never yours to begin with. But if it just sits in your living room, messes up your stuff, eats your food, uses your telephone, takes your money, and doesn't appear to realize that you set it free, you either married it or gave birth to it.
Oh, Steve. Oh, boy. That's a shocker. There was another one about it. If you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it was yours. You say, if it comes back, nobody else wanted it. So
exactly. Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right. One last one for you. You'll like this one. Two kids are arguing. Two kids are arguing over whose father is a bigger scaredy cat, right? The first kid says, "My dad is so scared that when lightning strikes, he hides underneath the bed." Second kid replies, "Yeah, well, that's nothing. My dad's so scared that when my mom has to work the night shift, he sleeps with the lady next door."
Oh. Uh-oh.
All right. Well, I think we've covered it all. Right. The jokes of the day. So, Andrew Malcolm, happy birthday to the Prince of Twitter, the regent of redstate.com, at AH Malcolm on Twitter. Always so much fun being with you. And hey, man, we've been doing this for 15 years. You're just the best. Yep. Period. End of story. And thanks so much for being part of this. I have a blast every single time, man.
Well, so do I, and I thank you for your patience with me over all this time, and for the people for listening, and for letting me be on the phone this week. And I will see you next week, and see everybody. Thank you, Ed, for everything.
See you next week.